Welcome to Red Flags with Elissa.
Welcome to Red Flags with Elissa. I'm your host, Zofia Morales, and I'm thrilled to have you join me on this journey through the intricate world of medical spa law. As a managing attorney with years of experience in this unique field, Elissa is here to shed light on the nuances and critical legal considerations that come with operating a med spa. In this episode, we'll dive deep into the legal beauty of medical spas, where the intersection of healthcare and beauty is essential in today's evolving market. So let's get started. Grab your notepad because you won't want to miss the expert tips and advice that could pave the way for your med spa's success. So today we're going to discuss LLC or PC, legal structures and smart starts for med spa owners. Welcome back, Elissa.
Thank you so much. I enjoy being here.
So let's start from the very beginning. What are the first legal steps someone should take when they decide, I'm going to open a med spa?
Right. So that is going to depend on who wants to open the med spa. If it is a physician can form a professional corporation, a PC, or a professional limited liability corporation, PLLC. The difference between, or what makes those unique, is that the state only allows a certain class of people to have that kind of designation. So, for example, if engineers wanted to get together and do whatever engineers do, and everybody that owned the company was an engineer, that could be a PC or that could be a PLLC. So it's the same thing with physicians. So if a physician wanted to own something, or a group of physicians wants to own something, then it would get that designation of PC or PLLC. If it is going to be a mix, meaning that it's to own the med spa at least 51% owned by a physician, then that would need to be an LLC because it's not following those guidelines of 100% member or manager ownership of everyone being in that same profession.
Gotcha. So if it was a doctor and a nurse or a nurse practitioner, then
That's an LLC by default.
LLC. Very good. So med spas are unique in that they offer both medical and cosmetic services. How does that impact the type of business entity that someone would be looking at?
So really, there's not going to be much of a difference. You're looking at who are the original members or managers, and they're going to operate the exact same way. A PLLC for a medical spa, that just means that it's either owned by a doctor or a group of doctors. An LLC, each entity is going to be contracting with that physician to be its medical director, with that RN for independent contractor services, with that physician to be the employed physician of the med spa. So the med spa is who is doing all of that contracting with the different individuals or groups in order to provide services to their patients.
So we're dealing with a lot of different moving parts and entities, really. I mean, it sounds like a business, but it's actually a conglomeration of businesses in a way.
It is. And the easiest way that I have found in explaining that to people, specifically people in the medical field, is to say if it is not clinical, it is admin. And so that's like, for me, the easiest way to really help people understand the dichotomy of it. And then the other thing too is, for every hat that a doctor wears, there needs to be a contract. So we can't have one big conglomerate contract that's going to take care of the medical directorship and the employed MD. Those need to be separate. So what I like to tell people is, like, I'm just an attorney, right? If I'm working somewhere and they say, ma'am, we now need you to clean the windows, we now need you to take out the trash, they're not paying me anymore to do that. Most
Right.
people, you just got duties as assigned, right? It's not the same thing with a physician. So when a physician is doing something that requires a different type of physician hat, there needs to be a different type of agreement.
Wow. Okay. So, taking all this into account, can you walk us through the pros and the cons of the LLC versus a PC?
So, really, again, it's going to depend on who's owning it, right? Structurally, and the way that it's going to be run, there's not going to be much of a difference. You're still trying to protect the liability of the people in that organization. And so the function of these two things, whether it's a professional limited liability or a professional corporation or a limited liability, is that the liability is going to be limited to that corporation, i.e., they're not going to be able to come and get my house, or they're not going to be able to come and get my car. Now,
Right.
are there exceptions to that rule? Of course, there's the exception to the exception to the exception. But generally speaking, when a corporation, meaning a LLC or a PC, is engaging in some type of business, it is going to be very difficult to personally find the members or the managers of that corporation personally liable. Is it impossible? No. However, like think of Enron. Like that's how deep it has to be traditionally. Now,
Right.
again, there are exceptions to every rules. And people are love to go down the rabbit holes. Well, what if this? And what if this? And what if this? I cannot think of every single zombie apocalypse exception that might be out there, right? Because
Yeah.
there's hundreds. There are honestly hundreds of exceptions. But if
Yeah.
someone is acting in with bad faith, then yeah, we're probably going to be able to pierce that corporate veil. But generally speaking, the limitations of that corporation or the liability of that corporation is only going to rise to the level of the assets of that particular corporation.
Okay. Well, and I think that's probably where this conglomeration of businesses helps you as well, right?
Yes, definitely.
Got some firewalls built in there. So, what should be included in the foundational documents when you're talking about operating agreements and bylaws and all of that? What all is needed to set up a med spa for long term success?
So I like to tell people that contracts are living, breathing documents. A lot of people think that, oh, I got this contract and I have to get it notarized. No, you don't. It doesn't make it any more official
Official.
than if you wrote it on a sticky note. Okay. You can have a valid contract on a sticky note as long as everybody is cool. The minute that something happens, or that you think something is happening, or there's the sense of impropriety, that's why lawyers are like, please write this down, please, please, please write this down, right? Because
In a
it's
little more detail than fits on a sticky note.
right, because it's not a problem until it's a problem.
Right.
You can have an agreement for 20 years, and if it's never been a problem, then we're fine. The minute that whatever that exception or that problem, because a problem becomes a problem, that's when we're going back to the operating agreement. Whenever we do LLC formations specifically for med spas or anything related to that, I do those at a flat fee, meaning that for this fixed price, we are going to file your documents with the Secretary of State, get you all the paperwork that you're going to need, and we're also going to do an operating agreement. We're going to include that in there. That's how important I think that is.
Mhm.
Even if it's just you, right? If it's just
Yeah.
me and my cookie
It's me,
factory.
myself, and I. Surely I agree with myself.
Right, but it's still helpful to have a single member operating agreement. It's helpful when you're applying for business loans. It's helpful when you're applying for accounts at the bank or just what have you, right? Is it necessary? Not really, but I think it's helpful. If you got more than one person, You got two? Then yeah, we're going to need it. We're
Yeah.
definitely going to need it because that is your blueprint. That is your Bible. That if something goes wrong, the first question any attorney worth their salt is going to ask you is, what does the contract say? What does
Yeah.
your operating agreement say? Because while there are state statutes that govern how businesses are run, the Texas Business Code, while those things are out there, it's a much easier argument to say that you breached your contract versus you violated and or not only did you breach your contract, but you violated this code, right? That's a better argument than just saying you violated this code or you may have violated this code. And then it's going to be a lot of he said, she said, he said, he said, she said, she said. And it's going to become more expensive and more problematic. So I strongly encourage all of my clients, regardless of the nature of the business, if you have more than one person, and I really don't care if it's your best friend from third grade or your husband's cousin's brother's fiance's boyfriend. I don't know, right? Trying to think of all the
Fiance's boyfriend, that could be problematic, but
right.
who knows?
Well, maybe, right,
Maybe
but
it could be special. Who
it
knows?
could be special. But if it works, if you like it, I love it. You love it, I like it.
There you
But
go.
whatever those relationships are, it needs to be written down because people get squirrely when it comes to money,
Yes,
right?
they do.
And if they think, or if I'm doing all the work and you're reaping all the benefit and you're buying donuts every Friday, and I'm like, yo, we don't have money for donuts. But you're like, but everybody loves donuts. That's a problem,
Yeah.
right? That is a legitimate problem. And how do we rectify that? Do I buy you out? How do I kick you out? Can I bring somebody else in? If my friend over here is like, yeah, they really shouldn't be buying donuts. What do those scenarios look like? What kind of notice do I have to give the other party to kick you out? Right. So, again, it doesn't really matter if it's a med spa or if we're baking cookies. The difference with the med spa is that it has to be 51% owned by a physician. So if your physician is like, I'm out of here, you got to find another physician in order to keep
Yeah.
operating. Otherwise, you're
Yeah.
non-compliant, right? So those are my biggest flags that I tell people. But once you get it in writing, once you come to a meeting of the minds, so to speak, and if it's just the two of us, and now we want to add a third person, the document can expand to add that
Right.
third person or add that fourth person or fifth person or to take away people. That's why I consider them to be living, breathing documents. They're not set in stone. They are malleable. They're malleable by the fact that we can have an amendment
Sure.
and we'll amend or change what's going to happen.
I love that. So you've seen a lot of this, and I'm sure you've seen plenty of clients come in pre-formed, so to speak. What's the most common mistake you see with a new med spa owner?
I would say the most common mistake that I've seen with just a business owner is that they don't really think through what happens if they don't pay my invoice.
Mm. Hmm.
Right? What
Yeah.
happens if they dispute the invoice? And how often do I need to get paid? Do I need to get paid every 30 days? Do I need to get paid every 45 days, 60 days? Because that's going to be a huge cash flow
Yeah.
problem,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
What happens if I'm going on site to somebody else? What type of insurance am I going to need? Right? Because
Yeah.
there's a lot of I have people that want to do mobile hydration. Oh, that's great. Come to me and give me my IV hydration. But then if you trip and fall in my house, what's going to happen?
That's a very good question. And I've got to say, I'm a
Right?
fan of mobile hydration.
Right. But those are things that
Yeah.
they need to, that the
That
business
needs to be
owner
sorted through.
needs to really think about what type of other policies, and I'm not an insurance broker, but what type of other umbrella policies do you need? If you have people driving, if your mobile business is so large that you have people using their vehicles, what does that look like? Or do you need to purchase your own vehicles, right? What type of malpractice insurance do the people that are doing the services need to be carrying? Do they need to have extra versus what they personally have? Now, from my perspective, a really good insurance agent, especially someone that's worked with physicians or in the healthcare arena, should be able to offer you really sound advice in that area.
And speaking of sound advice, what's the one piece of advice you always give a new med spa owner before they sign their first lease or hire their first employee?
Get with your attorney, because a lot of people think, oh, well, I want to have an employment contract. Do you really? What is the end game? Right? Because it sounds great. Oh, I have this contract with the receptionist. Is
What?
that somebody? I mean, you'd
Yeah.
be surprised, right? Like a lot of people, because they had bad bosses, and I've had horrible bosses. And so you want to do things differently. But there is a reason why we are an at will state. And so maybe what we need to do is have policies and procedures in place as to what Jane Doe is going to be doing as the receptionist, right?
Right.
Uh, because then if Jane Doe isn't showing up for work, it is going to be a lot easier to get rid of Jane Doe, uh, having an at will uh, type of agreement versus having an actual employment contract, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of
Exactly.
people think, oh, I want to contract with this person, I want to contract with this person. That's like you may not, right? Certain people,
Yeah.
certain professions, you absolutely have to contract with.
Right.
But then there's some that, maybe we just need a list of duties, and you're going to sign off that you understand these are the duties that you're going to perform. That I just personally think getting involved with an attorney early on is going to save you the headache for later. And I have a number of clients that I think would agree with me on that.
Yeah. I suspect you do. So, for someone who's listening today who's thinking they want to get into this med spa thing, what is the first thing they should do after this interview?
I would say if you are an RN, you need to find a doctor that you're going to partner with. A lot of nurses know doctors, right? A lot
Right.
of doctors are now understanding what it means to be a medical director. It is a side hustle for a physician. It is not going to be their bread and butter. If a physician is like, well, I'd like 5 to 10 grand a month, that's a no. So if someone wants to do that, that to me is one of the easiest things. Finding a physician. If you are a physician and you want to start a med spa, funny enough, a lot of physicians have their own PLLCs or have their own PCs, and we can start your med spa under that umbrella. If you don't have one created, we can help you create one.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing all this great information today, Lisa.
My pleasure.
And thank you for joining us on Red Flags with Elissa Brewster. You can find her on brewsterlawtx.com. Please like, subscribe, and leave a review.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.